the global slave class. This is something that almost nobody wants to admit or acknowledge. There are certain conditions that are common to all slaves. Some of them are a lack of culture, there is no political culture amongst the slave. There are no real ethics or virtues amongst slaves. There's no enterprise or industry among slaves. There is no property amongst slaves. There is only hope and the master. Now there are two masters. There is the worldly master, who you may render as Caesar, and then there is the spiritual master. And so the only way that slaves interact with the world is through subservience. Slaves also do not procreate. They're not permitted to have children or to create families. They're only a labour unit. And slaves also, they don't have strength and stamina because they're fed grains. They're fed grains that only give them energy for the task at hand, but nothing more beyond that. And neither is a slave supposed to have longevity of life. Now, maybe you've already realised what I'm getting at here. Let's look at the parallels between slaves in the old world and the creation of the new slaves in the new world. Increasingly, the people are being mixed. They're being mixed in their culture. Their individual cultures, their individual faiths are being dissolved, subsumed into one collective. The relations between the men and the women are breaking down more and more, more and more. No children. No family home. And the UN initiatives or the EU initiatives or whatever are that you will own nothing and be happy. Also, the food pyramid was turned on its head sometime in 1950, 1960, and began to demonize the real source of nutrition, the real building blocks of life, the real protein and fat from meat, and they began to substitute it with sugars, grains, so-called fortified grains, which are they're fast, they're indigestible, and they contribute to intestinal diseases. Processed sugars and seed oils. You know, this is slave food. This is slave food made to keep a slave hard at work without allowing him to build up a strength, a core strength. And this is why the men are losing their masculinity. And so the people have become and are becoming a slave class. You know, we talk about all these things individually. MGTOW, feminism, the breakdown of marriage, the corruption of the food industry, the impact or influence of multiculturalism on Western nations, or really every nation which was formerly at the forefront of liberty, individual property rights, sovereignty, or what is recently being crystallized as the patriarchal lineage of the Proto-Indo-European. This is what's being destroyed, and all of these things work in unison to produce a slave class. And as much as we may fight against this or discuss with hindsight how this happened, or why this shouldn't have happened, or how things could have been, much of this was an inevitability, and the reason it has ended up the way that it's ended up is because it's an inevitability, and the engineers who have constructed all of this have known this. We have been in economic depression. They only talk about it in successive periods of recession, but altogether it's a depression which has lasted for 20 years at a minimum. And yet the smoke and mirrors of the system has been ongoing for decades, and the slow deterioration of the purchasing power of Western currencies, the traitorous selling of our manufacturing to China and India and Bangladesh and wherever else. Globalism has necessitated the formation of a slave class. The communists formerly spent 100 years debating how to end the class war, how to bring about communism, and the argument was really about the method in which this would occur. There was a humanitarian theory, there was the anarchistic theory, there's scientific Marxist theory, and none of them have managed to really answer the question. But the scientific method won out in the 20th century and gave rise to fascism. And that's what we've had for 80 years now. But still, it's necessitated a slave class. Socialism has come so far, socialism/fascism has come so far as to produce globalism, but in doing so it's produced the end of the world. The new generations are at odds with the boomers, who inherited everything, and even though you can say that they have used that inheritance to transform the world, they have turned all capital into dead capital. I'm not a communist, but I do see validity in labour theory, and not so much its conclusions, but its observations. And in labour theory, dead capital is all of that formerly productive capital, labour power, which has been turned into a machine and becomes dead. It's not really convertible or reproducible. Once the machine is made, that is its sole purpose, and it cannot be anything other than what it was designed for. Once its purpose is expended or becomes obsolete, then that's it. Then that's the end of it. It's dead. And that's what we are. We've become a dead. We've become a dead economy that has very little to no innovation anymore. And these are all symptoms of the same problem. We create a dumbed down, docile, subservient slave class that has no enterprise, no need to achieve anything, no need to struggle with anything, but at the same time the spirit of mankind is dying. People don't want to get married and have children because of the great strain and pressure that globalism has unleashed. But this is also a the spiritual death. This is the death of humanity. This is the death of empathy, and this will give rise to wars and will bring about physical death, and will bring about a cataclysm, an Armageddon. And this is the only way that it could have been. This is the only way it could have been. This is human nature.